Coming up, LeBron goes for the record and the Knicks hold on for a road win. This is Locked On Game to Game NBA.
Every game, every team, every angle. Locked On Game to Game, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Game to Game NBA, local experts going over the biggest stories on the hardwood. I'm your host, Jourdan Black. Thank you so much for making Locked On your first listen every single weekday. Jalen Brunson and Julius Randale led the way for the Knicks as New York won on the road against the Magic. Locked On Knicks goes over the third win in 4 games for New York.
The New York Knicks expelliarmus the Orlando Magic right out of their own building in a 102-98 victory. I'm Gavin Shaw of the Locked On Knicks podcast. It would have been pretty typical of the Knicks coming off one of their best wins of the season to lose this one in Orlando, but Jalen Brunson just wouldn't let it happen. 10 points in the final 3.5 minutes. Also had a beautiful assist to Jericho Sims. What really stood out to me was his start and stop acceleration. He has such a deep bag, but what allows him to access it at his size is his ability to create separation with rapid fire pressing down of the gas pedal. Emmanuel quickly was once again masterful, sublime decision-making, had the floater game going, was draining from deep. Julius Randale had some iffy moments, but also made some massive shots in a big-time New York Knicks win.
5 different players scored in double figures for the Magic, but the team effort wasn't quite enough to get the Orlando Magic a win against New York. Locked On Magic has more after his team dropped a game at home.
The Orlando Magic are ready to start talking postseason. They're ready to talk about how close they are in the standings to that final play-in spot. The question is, are they ready to play like it's a playoff game? That's what they got Tuesday night at the Amway Center, the third largest crowd at the Amway Center, as New York Knicks fans filled the building and really created a playoff-like environment, and we got a playoff-like game. It's a make-or-miss league. Magic missed some shots. Knicks made some. That's not the part that's the problem, or that's not the part that the Magic should take from this game. It's not even really about wins or losses. It's the experience of being in a close game. It's the experience of feeling that pressure, of the frustration of missing key shots down the stretch, of executing and not getting the result. This is a game where the Magic have to show a lot of growth and learn from to get where they ultimately want to be. This season, this team may not be the postseason team, but losses in games like this one are what's going to make them one of those teams very, very soon.
The Hawks fell under 500 with a loss to the Pelicans in New Orleans Tuesday night. Our Locked On Hawks host recaps the loss in what's continued to be an up and down season for Atlanta.
Hello, friends. My name is Brad Rowland. The Atlanta Hawks now fall to 27-28 on the season with a loss in New Orleans on this Tuesday evening, the final game of a lengthy 5-game road trip for the Hawks. They fall to 2-3 on the trip. Not a disaster by any means, and the Hawks did not play terribly on this Tuesday, but the second half got away from them in a big way. Offensively, in particular, the Hawks could not score for large swaths of the second half. Looked a little bit tired in this spot after a very, very long road trip, and New Orleans took advantage of that in pretty sound fashion. The Hawks had some strengths and some weaknesses in this game for sure, but in the end, not a terrible performance by any means, but the Hawks did not have quite enough to go over the top on the road against a quality opponent in the Pelicans. We'll get into all of what transpired and more on the Locked On Hawks podcast.
That's 3 straight wins for the New Orleans Pelicans, and with the trade deadline looming, could they be one move away from being a real title contender? I'm Jake Madison, host of Locked On Pelicans and Locked On NBA. While they endured a rough 10-game losing streak, the Pelicans have bounced back strongly behind the play of Brandon Ingram. He had 30 points in the victory over the Atlanta Hawks on Tuesday night, but more than that, he just elevates everyone around him. He finished with 8 assists. Trey Murphy is a better player. Herb Jones is a better player when B.I. is doing his thing. Star players matter, and getting Brandon Ingram back for New Orleans has completely turned them around, and they now look like the team that was a top 4 seed for much of the season. And with the West jumbled up and winnable, do they go all in before the trade deadline? They have everything you need: salary, draft picks, interesting young players. If the Pelicans feel they are close, and they'll get Zion Williamson back soon, don't be surprised if they make a splashy move by Thursday.
Coming up, the Grizzlies pick up a win on the road. This is Locked On Game to Game NBA. It's a new year. We're all still trying to feel good and eat healthy, and Built Bar is the perfect way to stay on track and enjoy something that actually tastes good. A delicious treat without all of the fat and calories. Built Bar is the protein bar that is covered in real chocolate. Yes, real chocolate. It tastes like a candy bar. Such good flavors, only 4 grams of sugar, 17 grams of protein, 130 calories. And now you don't have to wait for a box to come in and only shop for them at built.com. Now you can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club. So run into Walmart or Sam's Club today, grab a box, and you can thank me later. Welcome back to Locked On Game to Game NBA. I'm your host, Jourdan Black. Thanks so much for making Locked On your first listen every weekday. The Memphis Grizzlies jumped out to an early lead against the Bulls last night and rode that advantage all the way to a home win. Locked On Grizzlies recaps the Memphis victory.
Don't tell the Memphis Grizzlies that they just beat a team that might be in the lottery, might be sellers at the trade deadline on a second game of a back-to-back. Considering the last couple of weeks that Memphis has had, they'll take any victory they can get. And at least for one night, they won their current battle with adversity. I'm Joe Mullinax of Locked On Grizzlies, and Memphis has been on a skid. You might have heard of it. 8 of their last 9 games being losses, lots of on-the-court and off-the-court distractions for stars like Ja Morant, role players like Dillon Brooks. Hasn't been going well in Memphis. At least for one game, they looked the part of a team ready to overcome some adversity. They got a big lead against the Bulls. They lost it in the third quarter. They were able to get it back with a strong fourth quarter of play after several fourth quarter collapses. So Jaren Jackson Jr. showing that he belongs as an all-star, Ja Morant rising to the occasion as a scorer. Those are all good things. Now, after this victory, the question becomes, 72 hours from now, what will this Memphis Grizzlies team look like?
The Timberwolves and Nuggets met for the second time in just 3 days Tuesday night after Minnesota blew out Denver over the weekend. But Denver rested its stars in that game and had everyone back last night, which made a big difference. Locked On Wolves recaps the Nuggets' revenge.
The Minnesota Timberwolves were completely and utterly annihilated by the Denver Nuggets on Tuesday night. I'm Ben Beacon, host of the Locked On Wolves podcast, and just 48 hours after the Timberwolves beat a shorthanded Nuggets team at Target Center on Sunday, Denver was nearly back at full strength. Still no Jamal Murray, but otherwise a full-strength Nuggets team. And they beat the Wolves easily in this one. The final score, 146-112, a 34-point win for Denver. The Nuggets hung 49 on the Wolves in the first quarter. The Wolves were down 30 at the end of the first quarter, and it was over at that point. Rudy Gobert didn't score in this game, played just 19 minutes. D'Angelo Russell was ejected in the third quarter. Nikola Jokic had a triple-double before halftime for the Nuggets. The Nuggets had 3 starters score 20+. Jokic had 16 assists as well. And the Wolves were never competitive. Anthony Edwards and Luka Garza combined or tied to lead the team in scoring at 19. But from the jump, this was an uncompetitive performance for Minnesota. Extremely disappointing. We're going to break down the whole thing on the postgame pod. Subscribe to Locked On Wolves for all things Timberwolves.
LeBron James went into last night's game against the Thunder just 36 points shy of Kareem Abdul Jabbar's scoring record, and the King made history. But the Lakers couldn't get the best of Oklahoma City. Locked On Lakers goes over that historic night, yet loss for Los Angeles and LeBron.
This is Andy Kamenetsky, co-host of Locked On Lakers podcast, and Lakers lose 133-130 to the Oklahoma City Thunder in what was a historic night of bittersweet greatness. LeBron James, with 10.2 seconds left in the third quarter, hit a 14-footer to become the NBA's all-time leading scorer. Goes without saying, incredible achievement by an incredible player, but this was also a game the Lakers badly needed to win, and they simply did not show up. Maybe they were distracted by the LeBron of it all. Maybe they were distracted by the upcoming trade deadline. Maybe it's just a matter of the Thunder being a bad matchup for them as a young, athletic, quick team. Whatever the case may be, 21 turnovers for 27 OKC points, horrific defense throughout the night, and 6 Thunders in double figures. The Lakers are now in a position where their backs are getting seriously close to that wall, and they've got very little time to turn this season into something that is only remembered for LeBron making history and complete and utter disappointment. A lot more to get into, so make sure you subscribe to the Locked On Lakers YouTube channel and that you make Locked On Lakers your first listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Well, that's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Game to Game. Thank you so much for making Locked On your first listen every single weekday. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On NBA and to your team's Locked On podcast on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jourdan Black, and this has been Locked On Game to Game.